stream looking at you guys? Oh, alright. I'll prop it up on my phone now. Put that up here. Alright. Alright, we got it going, y'all. What's going on, guys? It's your boy JJ, and today I'm here with a couple of tier lists this time. I know it doesn't say tier list in the stream, but this is how I decided I'm gonna do it. I figured it'd be easier for all you guys, for you guys visually who may or may not be tuning in, and those who will want to watch the stream later on, to know my thoughts on each individual player if I just did a tier list. So here we are. So without further ado, make sure you guys subscribe if you guys want to hear what I have to say more often. If you guys want to tune into the content more, make sure you like it. Make sure you like all my shorts and my streams. Subscribe to the channel and make sure you turn on the post notifications. Without further ado, let's get started. So first up, we got Drake May, and I mean, I would have put him. My thoughts on Drake May are they're kind of split at the moment. Part of me is I still think he had a pretty good year. I think before the playoffs, I probably would have given Drake May an A minus. I would have put him in A tier, but I think because of the playoff performance, I got to slide him in B. He'd be around a B plus for me because of how efficient he was in the regular season. In the postseason, he blew chunks. I mean, you can't really dispute that. And I wonder if whatever. I'm not gonna worry about that. Anyways, oh, never mind. All right, there we go. So, but yeah, I mean, Drake May, for as good as he was in the regular season, he really just blew chunks in the postseason, especially in the Super Bowl. I'm not gonna pretend like all of it sits on Drake May, and of course, this is why I'm doing the tier list so that you guys know for a fact that I'm not trying to put it all on Drake May. But yeah, he's a high B for me. Next up, Travion Henderson. I'm gonna go around a B for him. He's firmly in B tier. He didn't really get going until week I believe week eight or so when they played Cleveland when they played Cleveland, and that's when Travion really started getting going, and that's when the Patriots really started playing to his strengths. They started giving him carries on outside zones, started giving him toss plays, whereas the first 7 or so weeks they kind of had the same. It felt like the Patriots had the same call sheet pretty much for Ramondre and Travion, which just isn't gonna work. Which didn't work at first, and I mean, once Travion started going, and then eventually getting the bulk of the carries, that's when I think the Patriots run game was at their best. And then here, Ramondre, I'm putting him in B as well because for as average as he looked in the first half of the year, when when Travion rather got consistent carries and started getting consistent production, and defenses had to worry about stopping Travion, that's when Ramondre really shined. The last 3 weeks he had, I believe, 6 total touchdowns, and he was running like 2022 Ramondre. The guy that ran for 1,000 yards as the lead back. The the last like 5 or 6 weeks of this season, Ramondre this that featured some of the best football I've seen Ramondre play in, as as a pro. I really hope they keep this duo together as like a I don't probably that's like a more Dollar Tree esque version of Jameer Gibbs and David Montgomery. But I really like the dynamic and I hope they stay together next year. Stephon Diggs. Now keep in mind, I am taking into account their performance. However, I'm also taking into account the expectation. With that being said, I'm putting Stephon Diggs in A tier. He's my first A tier guy so far, and that's because who the hell expected him to get 1,000 yards this year? Coming off a torn ACL, or considered past his prime, and especially with how like little run he was getting in the first couple of weeks, you'd have never thought Diggs would end up with 1,000 yards. I mean, he was absolutely phenomenal considering all the circumstances. I mean, you can't really argue with that. I mean, he was up for comeback player of the year for a reason. Everybody was doubting him. You know, people didn't think that move was going to move the. People didn't think signing Diggs was going to move the needle for the Patriots, but at least in the regular season, it really did. Keyshawn Booty, uh, I'm gonna go. Initially, I was thinking like low. I think I'm gonna go like low B tier. He's between like a B minus and C plus. And honestly, I think I might just get rid of I'm gonna just get rid of D tier because I don't think there's anybody on the Patriots that was really a D tier player, at least as far as starters go. But yeah, Booty was just like a lot of like even like Diggs. He was very topsy turvy, up and down. Some games he'd have games where he'd catch like 7 or 8 passes, end up with a touchdown or two, and then other games where he would go 0, 0, 0 across the board throughout the entire game. Um, I still like his skill set. I think he can still help this team, but I mean, I just don't think he's going to necessarily move the needle. I think I can. Most patch receivers, I would say, are either B or C. Mac Hollins, I'm gonna put him in B as well. I like. Um, I I'll say this. I think he's actually a higher B than Booty, considering considering expectations. I really had no expectations of Mac Hollins even really being remotely helpful for this offense. But he was a very good help. He was a solid run blocker, and he was a very valuable like safety net for Drake May this year. And for what it's worth, he was the best patch receiver in the playoffs this year, which is kind of a bad thing if you really think about it. But Mac Hollins really was the best guy in the playoffs, best pass catcher for Drake May in the playoffs. At the very least, the most consistent. Next up, Pop Douglas. I'm gonna put him in C. Just kind of, he had his moments, but he seems pretty replaceable to me. You know, there's a lot of guys who are there's a lot of guys in the league who are good when they get in space. There's a lot of guys that have that same skill set as Pop Shota, but and when he was given those moments to shine, he was very good, or he was solid, I should say. But really, just not anything spectacular. Kind of just really just average for me. That's really what the C tier is for. You're really just average guys. I'm gonna put Kyle Williams in this tier as well. Impressive when he was given the reps, but all in all, just not really given much of a chance. Um, I think I think you could easily slot him in as like a replacement for Demario Douglas. I almost wouldn't be surprised if the Pats actually move on from Demario Douglas, since they already have Kyle Williams who could probably easily take his place. Up next, now we got the offensive line. Garrett Bradbury, I'm putting in C. I think he's just perfectly average center. I think you needed to sign him. He was a much needed signing. Obviously much less heralded signing from the Pats free agent class last year. And all in all, I think if there's an offensive lineman that I think is most likely to be replaced, it's probably Bradbury. Jared Wilson, I'm going with a C plus here. He's probably I'd put him at a higher C than all the other guys in C tier, but he's not quite a B tier guy for me. Let's do that. There we go. But yeah, Jared Wilson, um, he had his moments. I think it's tough. It's tough starting as a rookie on the O line. I'm not gonna, but I think similarly to another offensive lineman who we're gonna get to in a little bit, they just, you know, he got exposed. He got exposed quite a few times this year. It's just sort of, you see, he was just very average, I guess. Mike and Wenyu, I've been kind of trying to. I've been really confused as to where I should put him. I almost want to put him in low A, but overall, I think he's a high B for me. He's probably around a B plus for me, right right with Drake May. Because honestly, I think Mike Onwenu is an underrated offensive lineman in today's game. I mean, he's held down the fort for the Patriots, even when the line was at its worst. I mean, I truly think Mike Onwenu is really goes underappreciated. Morgan Moses, I'm putting him in a solid B, right with uh right with the running backs. I mean, Morgan Moses, he he had his shaky moments. As a matter of fact, I believe he was the most penalized offensive lineman on the Patriots. Either him or Will Campbell. I think both of them had like about as many penalties or but yeah. But his playoff performance absolutely carries his grade here. Because I mean in the first two rounds against LA and Houston, he didn't allow a single pressure. And I mean Morgan Moses was really, really excellent in the playoffs, especially considering his kind of just average regular season. And for what it's worth, I think he should be kept just for the relationship that he has with Will Campbell is reportedly really good, and that he's really become like a mentor to Will Campbell. So for what it's worth, I think he absolutely should stay at the very least, even if he's a backup, just to keep that sort of mentor mentee relationship with Will Campbell. Speaking of, I think I might be overreacting to the playoffs here, but I think he's the lowest grade I'd go. I think he I think Will Campbell's the closest to a D tier. He would be the closest to a D tier performance for me. Now in the regular season, he looked pretty much fine against guys who weren't named Myles Garrett pretty much. I mean, Will Campbell, he looked pretty solid in a lot of his regular season contests. But I mean, in the playoffs, him and Wilson both were really just not good in the playoffs. But Will Campbell was just something else, man. It pains me to say this because I've been trying my best to defend Will Campbell, and um and in no way is this trying to in no way am I trying to disparage Will Campbell as a person, or because he seems like a person who wants to get better. He seems to have all the tools to want to succeed, and I very much think he can. Whether it's as a left tackle or he gets moved to the interior line, I think Will Campbell can succeed. I still think he has talent, and I still think he has the drive to push himself to become better. And for what it's worth, a lot of current and former pros have lended their support to him. You got guys like Andrew Whitworth who who are lending their support, and he mentioned that he should try and reach out to Teron Armstead, who is, I believe, a five-time Pro Bowler at left tackle, who who has very who dealt with the arm length issues in the league. So I very much think Will Campbell can go up from this. I think it's a good learning experience for him. And here's hoping he can, rise above all that in 2026 and become that franchise changing blindside blocker that the Pats drafted him as. And moving on to our final two offensive players here. Uh I'll go I would go a low B for Hunter Henry and then a high C here for Austin Hooper. I mean, just they were both pretty solid safety nets. Hooper had his moments, but I just think he was never really going to have much of a chance to shine when he had Hunter Henry in front of him. Hunter Henry is the longest tenured player on the Patriots right now. So I have some thoughts about I whether or not I would keep these two. I think Hooper is pretty expendable. I think you can I think you can pretty much cut him loose. Whereas Henry, I'm not so sure about, especially if you go out and get someone in free agency. However, I do still think Hunter Henry does have a place here as that safety net kind of guy at tight end. However, with how the Patriots tend to use tight ends sometimes, I wouldn't be surprised if they make a run at one of the tight ends of free agency. Um, there is a really big one that there is a really big name in free agency that I'm sure my dad would really love to have on the Patriots. And for those living under a rock, that would be Kyle Pitts. But I'll provide my thoughts on that on the next podcast. Next podcast, I will be doing like a sort of wish list video for how I would prefer the Pats to attack this off season. What moves I think they should make in free agency, uh, what they should do as far as their drafting goes, and possibly making a trade. All that stuff. All that stuff I plan to go over on next week's podcast. All right, now we're starting off with the defense here. Milton Williams, firm A. I was excited. I was really excited when the Pats swooped in last minute to sign Milton Williams away from the Carolina Panthers. There was a lot of concerns regarding Williams um about whether or not his success was solely due to being on that stacked Eagles defense. And I think Williams proved this year that it wasn't just an Eagles thing. He's just that damn good. And I think same thing with Christian Barmore. I'm kind of conflicted. I was almost thinking high B. And I think my grade for both of these guys, especially Barmore, it more so is about them as a duo, as opposed to just them individually. But I just absolutely love the duo of Williams and Barmore, just absolutely clogging up the interior. I think that really that really puts the Pats defense in a good spot. And it just makes the linebackers' jobs a lot easier. And speaking of the linebackers, Spillane, I'm gonna put him in high B. I for as early for as often as he struggled early on in the year, and this goes for pretty much all the linebackers struggled early on in the year. I mean, I believe Spillane and Christian Ellis were 1 and 2 in terms of missed tackles through the first couple weeks. Spillane absolutely picked it up and stepped up throughout the year. And then even for the the period of time where Spillane was out late in the year, you know, Jack Gibbons, I think absolutely stepped up. He's a firm B for me. It sucks that I don't know how much of a future Jack Gibbons has with the Patriots right now. He is a restricted free agent, and if it's if we can if the Pats can bring him back on a cheap deal, I wouldn't mind that. I really liked how well Jack Gibbons was able to step up in the absence of Spillane. Mm. He just he really proved himself, and he really stepped up and showed why he deserved playing time when Spillane was out. Um, Jelani Tavai, C. Put him in C. He's sort of just like an average guy for me. Doesn't really float my boat too much. Especially when he's kind of dog water in coverage. But he's a solid run stopper. Christian Ellis, I'd put him in high C. He's a C plus. Very rangy linebacker. I wouldn't mind if I wouldn't mind him still being on the team. I don't I don't believe he's a free agent this year. Now I got now I got pretty much the edges here. Anthony Jennings, I'd probably go I'd go low B. I'd go low B for him. And what pushes it up is his playoff performance. He really had to step up in the face of Harold Landry's absence in the playoffs. And I think he did serviceable in the playoffs. You know, I wouldn't say he was spectacular or anything, but he did his job. He did his job in the playoffs. With Harold Landry out. Harold Landry, I'd probably go same as him, same as Anthony Jennings here, low B, because for he the main reason with Harold Landry is that he kind of never really was as good as his first game. He had 2.5 sacks against the Raiders, and then kind of never really reached that kind of peak again. But all in all, he was about he played about as good as I expected him to play, and he was a solid pass rusher, so I'd give him a B for that. Gilvon Chason, oh man, I am so conflicted. I I think he's a high B. I think he would be like a B plus because in the playoffs, Gilvon Chason might have been the Pats' best player in the entire AFC playoffs. up until the Super Bowl, the three playoff games against the AFC competition, Caleb Chason absolutely showed out. He started off slow. He started off the regular season slow, and it wasn't until the Tennessee game where he really started to pick things up and became a key part of the key cog in the defense. And Caleb Chason in the playoffs was just absolutely electric. I mean, you couldn't do anything. You couldn't do anything against him. You couldn't run the ball to his side. You couldn't run screens to his side. He was stopping any and everything on defense, man. And I've heard he's projected to get like 15 million a year. And that's I'm still conflicted on whether or not it would be worth it for the Pats to bring Chason in, whether to bring him back on that projected AAV. It sucks because I don't think they will, but man, he really showed out, and honestly might have gotten rid of the bust label. Depends on how he performs after getting whatever contract he's about to get in free agency. Now we got the corners. Carlton Davis. I think I'm gonna go high B as well. Either either that or right around a B for me, probably, because uh for better or worse, he pretty much was just as advertised. He was he's a very physical corner, and yeah, he was very physical. A lot of times a little too physical, considering he actually led the Patriots in penalties by an astounding margin. I believe Will Campbell was second with 7. Carlton Davis had 13 penalties. I think 13 or 14. And he just it was tough sledding at times. But I do still think he was a good assignment. Obviously, you want him to cut down on penalties. Would really love it if he did. But I do still think he's a good number 2 next to the only guy I have in S tier. That's Gonzo, baby. I mean, for anyone who's watched my channel before, you probably saw you probably know my first you probably saw my short on the first priority for New England right here, and that was Christian Gonzalez. And in all fairness, I did record that before I recorded that podcast episode before it came out that he said, or at least before my knowledge that of him saying that he wants to be a Patriot for life. And although I want to give him the benefit of the doubt as a Boston sports fan, I've been hurt by dudes saying that they want to be here before they end up getting shipped out, either end up getting traded or leaving free agency. So I don't know. I'm kind of conflicted, but if Gonzo decides to start holding out, Patriots better pay up, because I do not want Gonzo holding out through training camp or whatever BS. I do not want to see that. I mean, Gonzo played, like I said, I'm treading old water here, but Gonzo played his best game of the year in the Super Bowl while covering the reigning Offensive Player of the Year. So there is no reason why Gonzo shouldn't be resetting the market for DBs. Next up, we got Marcus Jones. I'm gonna put him in A. I think he's absolutely a very good slot corner. And I mean, his punt returning ability is just elite, man. I mean, he's still, the all-time leader in yards per return, in yards per punt return. I mean, the dude's just that dynamic with the ball in his hands. I cannot be more stoked that the Pats were able to sign him to an extension midseason for another 3 years. Next up, we got the safety duo. We got Craig Woodson and Jalen Hawkins. I'm more so grading them as a duo, but I think they're a solid B. You know, I didn't really expect much from this duo, especially after um the Pats decided to release Julius Peppers, which I kind of thought was insane. And I guess more or less Kyle Duggar as well. But although Duggar wasn't really getting playing time like that, you could tell he was most likely going to be gone from a mile away. But I like how they progressed throughout the year, and Craig Woodson, I I'm so glad to have him for another, like, what, 3 years. He's I can't wait to see how he progresses as a member of this Patriots defense. And Jalen Hawkins, I definitely think if you're gonna bring back if you bring back only one guy from this um from this 2025 team who's a current free agent, in 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 all honesty, there aren't many free agents. The big ones are, you got Chase on, Kyrus Tonga, and Jalen Hawkins pretty much, and also Jack Gibbons. Strictly free agent. I think if you're gonna bring one guy back, it's definitely Jalen Hawkins. I think he's the guy that you should most definitely bring back. I think he'll end up being affordable too. Brendan Schooler, special teamer. He's going an A. I mean, he really showed out in the AFC Championship game against the Broncos. I mean, those that Broncos special teams unit couldn't do anything, man. Schooler was getting to the return man about, like, in, like, less than a second after he was catching the ball. Like, it was ridiculous. It was ridiculous how fast he was able to get down there and just prevent any sort of return. You know, you know, a lot of criticism is hurled towards, Broncos not being able to get it done with Jarrett Stidham. I don't think nearly enough credit was shown, even by me. I don't think nearly enough credit was shown to Brendan Schooler and just the entire special teams unit, and not allowing any big plays on special teams. I think I think the special teams role was just as vital as the defense. And last we got Andy Borregales. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna go low B. I'm gonna go low B for Andy Borregales. He's very run of the mill. He was an average to above average kicker, but I mean, the kid's clearly got talent, but he had his ups and downs. That Miami game saw probably both his lowest low as well as his highest high. I mean, missing the two PATs, missing his first two PATs in the. I should clarify the week 2 game. The week 2 game against Miami, he missed his first two PATs, but then he absolutely clutched up with that. I believe it was a 53-yard field goal to put the Pats up by 6. going into Miami's final drive. But I mean, the kid has got so much talent, and I honestly can't wait to see how he progresses. I think he can become a really good kicker in this league. But yeah, so here's my tier list of all the Patriots starters here in 2025. One S tier guy, that's Gonzo. We got Milton Williams, Christian Barmore, Stephon Diggs, Marcus Jones, and Brendan Schooler in the A tier. Then for the B tier, we got Drake May, Robert Spillane, Mike Onwenu, Killahan Chason, Trayvon Henderson, Carlton Davis, Ramondre Stevenson, Jack Gibbons, Morgan Moses, Matt Collins, Kayshawn Booty, Harold Landry, Anthony Jennings, Hunter Henry, Craig Woodson, Jalen Hawkins, and Andy Borregales. And then in the S tier, Austin Hooper, Christian Ellis, Jared Wilson, Pop Douglas, Jelani Tavai, Kyle Williams, Garrett Bradbury, and Will Campbell. And now, not wasting further time, here we are with the Celtics tier list. Here's our mid-season tier list here for the Celtics, as I believe the All-Star game is currently ongoing, if I'm not mistaken. And just like our Pats tier list, I'm getting rid of D tier because I don't think there's any real D tier guys here for Boston. Although at the same time, I think I am also gonna get rid of S because I don't know if I'd say there's any S tier guys. Maybe one, but nah, I'm gonna. So yeah. So firstly, Jaylen Brown. He's our highest graded guy here. He's firmly an A. I mean, I think if you watch the 2024 finals at all, you would know Jaylen Brown. You would know Jaylen Brown was had the ability to score. But I mean, along with that, Jaylen Brown has been probably the most consistent player on the Celtics. Like almost no matter what, Jaylen Brown is most likely going to get you at least 25. Will get you at least 25 points. Will probably end up chucking a lot of shots. In all fairness, but even despite leading the league in shot attempts at 22.6 a game, he's still shooting nearly 50% from the field. I believe, or he's shooting 48% from the field while taking the most shots on average in the entire league. And he's just been super consistent for the Celtics. Hasn't had to miss many games. And yeah, you know what you're getting almost every time JB steps onto the court. Derek White, I'm putting him in B tier. Now, Derek White, his, his offensive game this year has definitely taken a step down. And he's not scoring as much as he has been, and he isn't shooting nearly as well as he has before, which on one hand, it's kind of fair. Celtics are without Tatum. You know, Derek White is basically having to be the second option when he was at best the third option. The last few years. But there's games sometimes where Derek White is just a complete like non-factor on the offensive end. But at the same time, Derek White has some games where he can just absolutely take over. It's ridiculous. And for what it's worth, he hasn't lost a step on defense, man. He is still as dynamic as ever on the defensive end of the court. So while he is a tier below JB, he's he's at worst a B, but he'd be a B plus for me. Peyton Pritchard, I'm sliding him right next to D White. Peyton Pritchard, he's had some, just like Derek White, he's had some really bad games on offense. games where he's just such a non-factor. He's not shooting as well from the field. But however, he has been absolutely electric since moving back to his old six-man position. I say old. He won six-man of the year just last year. But Peyton Pritchard, in I believe about 5 or 6 games since since returning to his six-man duties, has has provided that same type of magic that he did last year, and it's really helped the Celtics in terms of feeling the sting of having to trade Anthony Simons. So yeah, I would put Pritchard as a B. Anthony Simons, when he was here, I'd put him in the same category. I'd put him in B tier as well. He was he definitely was very helpful as that off the bench spark plug. And I mean, don't get me, and I do still miss him, because even if nothing else, just for the pure excitement that he brings, like when he's on fire and he's making nearly every shot he takes, he, that's something that's not easily replicated in the NBA. To me, is Keita, just like the Patriots one. I am taking into account encore performance as well as just general expectations that I had. I'm putting him in A. I I know I'm probably gonna get flamed for this, but I mean, to me, as Keita, he I can't stress enough how little expectations I had for the Celtics bigs this year. And honestly, this applies to Luka Garza. I'm putting him in the high B tier, man. Like, I had such little expectations for these bigs going into the year. Like, I really did not believe that they were going to be capable of doing much of anything. And I mean, Keita has really held his own as a starting center. Don't get me wrong, just like, White and Pritchard, he has his off games. He has his off games offensively and on the rebounding side. But he's still a really good big. He's capable of grabbing, 15 rebounds in a game. And I know that because he did it. He's pulled down 20 rebounds in a game before. I want to say he did it against the Pistons too. Now, hold on. Let me go right over here. Let me go to the game log. Look at that, 10 and 19 against Houston. Got He pulled down 20 boards against Denver. My mistake. In all fairness, Jokic was out that game, so take that with a grain of salt if you want. But 11-11 against Toronto, 19 and 18 against Minnesota. But I mean, he's clearly capable of having great games against some good big men too. And for what it's worth, he at least helps keep the offense going with all of his screen assists. And I mean, that Pritchard Keita pick and roll is absolutely killer. And then Luka Garza, I had even lesser expectations of. You know, we're talking about, a dude who was a G League All Star, but never really had much of an opportunity to make any kind of difference in the NBA. But Luka Garza has been he's been one of my favorite players this year. Honestly, I mean, just even just for how hard he fights on the offensive glass to create extra possessions. Not even and doesn't even show up on the scoreboard and doesn't even show in the book in the scorekeeping book sometimes. Like even if it's just he's just so effective at creating extra possessions for the Celtics by just being a pest. Whether it's tapping the ball back out to the dudes on the perimeter or forcing the bigs to foul him. He's just been so valuable on the offensive glass for Boston. And also, forget me for my ignorance. I had no clue this dude could shoot the three. He's shooting the three at a 43% clip. What the hell? Like, where did he learn this? Because I don't remember him doing it when he was in college at Iowa. But damn, I'm so proud that Luka Garza has been able to become such a vital part of this team. Jordan Walsh, I'm putting him in low B. I mean, just his overall impact as a defender has helped turn the tides for the Celtics on multiple occasions. Just look at the game against Chicago. You know, it was a tight game after the first quarter, but then Jordan Walsh came in, started wreaking havoc on the defensive end, and it sparked the Celtics to get a 20 point lead. So Jordan Walsh has just been I'm I'm also just very proud of I'm proud of a lot of guys on this roster because kind of like the Bruins in a way, kind of like the Boston Bruins in a way. They've uh, they've really needed to rely on a lot of guys who haven't been afforded huge opportunities in the league yet. You know, for Boston, you got uh, guys like Marat Husnadinov and like Casey Middlestat, who are just like who are really who on most teams would be like fourth liners or bottom sixers, but they're playing very vital parts in the Bruins machine. And it's the same way for the Celtics. You got guys like Jordan Walsh, Baylor Shireman, uh, and Ron Harper, and for a minute Josh Minot. Unfortunately, he he's actually going to be the first guy I put in C. I'm going to just get that out of the way. Unfortunately, he just he was very he was in the starting lineup early on, and I thought he played pretty solid, but he just got pushed out of the lineup, by Walsh and Sam Hauser, and then just it became the same situation that he was in Minnesota where he just wasn't getting playing time. So yeah, it sucks we had to ship him off to get under the tax thresholds and all that. But yeah, I mean Jordan Walsh is I'm just so proud of Jordan Walsh and how he's able to really prove that he's an NBA caliber player. Sam Hauser, I've been kind of flirting here between high C and low B, but I'm gonna go low B. Hauser, he has been possibly the most shaky shooter that the Celtics got because when Hauser is when Hauser's having an off day, he really has an off day. It's a real off day when he's not hitting his shots. But when he's on, he lights up TD Garden like no other. Like it's I don't think anyone can make TD Garden go absolutely berserk like Sam Hauser can when he's hitting shots. I mean, but he's shooting a career worst from three, and I mean it's really saying something when your career worst from three is 39%. That's absolutely saying something. Baylor Shireman, I'm putting solely in right and B range. I mean, he's another guy who really wasn't afforded much of an opportunity at the NBA level just because the Celtics were so stacked as a team. There really weren't many minutes to spare, but especially after the trade deadline, after Anthony Simons got traded, Shireman's been the guy starting at the two spot. They've had him start at the two. They've had White man the point guard spot and then move Pritchard back to six man. And the Celtics are operating really well with that lineup. I would like to see Shireman have a bigger part or maybe not have a bigger part in the offense, but I would like to see Shireman score more with the opportunities he is given. But for what it's worth, he is a very complimentary part of the Celtics team. And honestly, his overall defense and just fit with the Boston Celtics lineup, he really he really just confirmed to me that trading Simons was the right move, and especially trading him for Vooch. I'm gonna put him in. Actually, no, I'm gonna leave him off for right now just because he's only played 4 games. I'm not gonna rank him. It feels wrong to rank him, this early into a Celtics tenure. But for what it's worth, Vooch has been a really good fit for the Boston Celtics. I knew he would, and not even just for his ability to shoot, but he's good. He's been really good at finding open guys. He's been really good at finding guys cutting to the basket and finding open shooters. I wouldn't be surprised if I end up having Vooch at a high B by the season's end. By the time I get to my end of year rankings. Hugo Gonzalez, I'm gonna put him in a solid B as well, right next to Shireman. Just like Jordan Walsh, he's a consistent pest on defense. And coming into the draft, his big weakness was his shooting. Like he had the tools to be able to become a good 3-point shooter, but it was never one of his strengths going into the draft and getting picked. But I mean, you look at in all fairness, 30 33% basically from 3 is pretty solid considering I'm pretty sure he was shooting under 30% in the EuroLeague. So, I'd love to see Hugo, continue to work on it, become a solid 3-point shooter because he's already got the defense on lock, man. I mean, he is an absolute pest, and I love seeing it. Amari Williams, uh, I almost want to leave him off too, because he's only played like 10 games. For But if I were to give him a ranking, I'd probably go C for him. He's not he's a serviceable big. I think you know, when he was in the games, he was keeping the offense going fine. And for what it's worth, in Brooklyn when he had to come in because Garza and Keita fouled out, he absolutely stepped up big time. But I just think he's more so just an average big. solid, average, not really anything spectacular, but also not really costing the Celtics in a big way either. Ron Harper, I'm gonna go in high C. He's been solid ever since starting. He started getting his minutes, and congrats to him for or actually no, it was actually Amari. My bad. Or congrats to Amari for actually getting his contract converted to one way. So he's firmly with the Celtics. With the Celtics now. Well, he won't be in Maine anymore. Ron Harper, he's been very solid as well. And the only reason he's really in C tier is just because he hasn't really played many games. He hasn't really played many games either, kind of like Amari Williams. But he he also has consistently been getting playing time after the trade deadline, being serving as backup as a backup piece for Shireman. And for what it's worth, I think he's a serviceable he is a serviceable wing for the Celtic squad. You know, so yeah, I'm giving Vooch the DNF here. Did did not finish for this one, but um, and honestly, the only Celtics player I would have under that I would have in any tier other than A, B, or C is Xavier Tillman. He would be in the F minus tier because Xavier Tillman sucks. I don't care that he made a 3-pointer in the NBA Finals. He was awful. He provided next to nothing for this team. He's supposed to provide defense, but he was stuck having to play center as a 6'7". But I mean, he just didn't provide anything. He couldn't rebound, couldn't shoot, couldn't defend. He just wasn't all that good. But thankfully, he's gone. I was really hoping that the Celtics would do it before the season started, so I didn't have to see him. But alas, better late than never. But yeah, those are my tier lists, and this is the end of the podcast, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed. Once again, subscribe to the YouTube channel and turn on notifications if you want to hear more of what I have to say. Tune in to my lives to catch all my podcasts. And yeah, it's been your boy JJ, and I'm gone.